Hey guys, today we're lucky enough to have one of our very own pro builders, Agent, doing a live base building stream for us. We've got his screen up here. He is one of the best builders that we have in our very talented team. And honestly, probably the best 5v5 player I've ever played with. Lucky to play with him a couple of years ago. This guy is insane, and he's going to build an Anti-3 base for us today. Agent, hello?
Hello.
Um,
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for jumping on. I'm sure one of the first questions everyone kind of asks if they try and build their own base is like, where do you start?
Town Hall Poison is pretty much the strongest defense, in my opinion, at Town Hall 14. Everything really relies, especially in one-hit format wars, which are the ones that I build for most often. If you don't get the Town Hall, it's a really big issue, so if you can set up a good traps around the Town Hall, it sets up the rest of the base to do well.
So start with the Town Hall comp. Um, I assume a lot of the time you're just trying to build like a unique Town Hall comp that no one's really seen before.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, a lot of the meta is pretty similar. Like the single target infernos behind the town hall are very common, so you can only do so many variations of that before it kind of starts to look similar. But you try to make it at least a little different and have unique traps, or at least places where traps could be.
Chat, if you have any questions throughout today, let me know and I'll pass them on to Agent. But Agent, if you, like I said, start building in your own time, no rush, and we
Okay.
can just go. So the biggest thing I can point out so far, guys, is notice how he's just trying to make the town hall as inaccessible from as many points as possible. Obviously, from basically no matter where you are outside these walls, you can't reach the town hall or that single inferno. Just trying to make it as awkward as possible. Plus, I've never seen a town hall comp like that before, so it's just making it really, really ugly. I'm liking that town hall comp. Yeah, that looks a little ugly. So you're kind of happy with your town hall comp now, and you're moving on to the rest of the base.
Yeah, I'll usually start off with something like that and then adjust maybe the walls. I'll finish the right side of the town hall, but getting the basic idea of setting up the town hall and then moving on to some adjacent compartments and kind of seeing how everything fits with the spacing on the map.
Notice how he's using a lot of open compartments, by the way, guys. It just makes it so much harder for super wall breakers to be as effective with those open walls. Ooh.
Try to avoid having too many open walls between compartments though, because it does give the heroes a lot of value. Like it's okay more when it's like edges like this because they're not able to go directly into another compartment. But if I'm trying to set up like another important compartment next to this, I don't want to allow like a king or a queen to walk all the way along and get too much value.
Okay. So yeah, chat. What he's saying here is he doesn't really like the open walls, like right here where I'm drawing, because yeah, you can go from one compartment into the next. But when the open wall only opens like the corner of one compartment, it's fine. Also, you'll see a lot of builders do like these like little compartments on the outside here, and that's just done to mess with wall breakers as well. Basically, forces multiple wall breakers. How many walls do super wall breakers target? Was asked in the chat.
Um, to be honest, I can't remember off the top of my head the exact number. I think I kind of do it more by feel.
To be honest, as far as I can tell, the number kind of changes dependent on the number of like buildings or like other compartments that are wall breakable. Like some of the time it works, some of the time it doesn't. But yeah, I just kind of go gut feel when I'm attacking. But
Hmm.
it's more like where is the next solid comp that a wall breaker can target. Yeah, that's often how I do it. Not necessarily by the number of walls in that comp, but by the availability of a substitute. So that eagle compartment's kind of huge. Is that like normally what you do with the eagle? I've seen a lot of anti-3s are like that.
Yeah, I think just to give more space for traps because the eagle is such an important defense. So if you make the compartment much smaller than that one, it can be reached. Like if I cut it off and it was the compartment ended here, then it would be able to be reached from the next compartment over. And also it gives more space for traps and Teslas and things like that, so it's not quite as free if the attacker was looking to send a hero for it.
Um, One random question I got. So that multi-comp in the core, you've got you a lot of like anti-3s you'll notice guys have like moats across the middle of the base. So what I mean by a moat is like it's just an open channel like through here to stop like smash attacks. But Agent's cut his off on the right hand side but not on the left. Is there any particular reason for that? Like
So
subject
in
to
this
change.
case, yeah, I mean it could change. I think I don't like leaving things open too much, but in this case on the because I'm planning to have like another compartment. I'm looking at putting the scatter shot roughly in this area, so I don't want to have the compartment opened over here. But on this side, it's not really too much of an issue, or at least it's the single target Inferno and the scatter shot are both not reachable, so it's a little dangerous to go into this compartment. And also, if
Yep.
somebody was looking to kind of have like a queen walk along this side or along this side, then they have the chance that their queen cuts in here instead of going into the compartment they want to. Whereas if
Yep.
this was closed off, then it would be easy to choose where your
Right.
hero goes.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense actually, chat.
Not sure
Why are
exactly
some
how.
why are
Go
some
ahead.
sorry, why are some compartments one tile oversized? So I assume he's referring to both the multi-comp here, because there's 5 tiles one side, and the scatter. Why do you use 5 tiles in between a defense and some walls and 4 for others?
For traps and pathing, because there's room for a Tesla here and a giant bomb. If the compartment was one tile smaller, there's a lot less space for Teslas and giant bombs. And then also the pathing. If like two defenses are set up like this and like this, if balloons are coming in, then they'll go here, here, and then they might go around the multi-target. Whereas if everything is an equal distance apart, then there's a chance that balloons go here and then they split to the multi or that they path. So it makes the pathing a little more predictable when defenses are spread out, and you can take advantage of that.
Yep. Plus, I'm guessing the more spots you have for potential Tesla farms, the better. Because it just makes
Yes.
it really hard to predict where you're going to run
Yeah, a
into.
lot of the meta right now is like almost any attack can triple, so a lot of times it's even more about getting lucky with traps or having good traps than it is about like having the perfect base because you can't defend everything right now.
Yeah, chat. I know personally from like lots of bad experience just being bad at the game. That like it's so hard on like a good anti-3 base to get value with your king, because that's what a lot of these traps are to stop. Like the king clearing out an entire compartment, because a lot of the time with particularly like queen charge attacks, you need the king to funnel one compartment so your queen can go in the core. But if you can't funnel that out, then the attack falls apart really quickly. So a lot of defenders just trying to stop king value, as far as I can tell. How long does it take you to build one good base on average, like in time?
Mm, I don't know. I don't typically time it like maybe an hour. It could be less depending. Like a lot of the time, I'll start building a base and I might get to this point and then say, all right, I've got all my major defenses, the Infernos, Scatters, and Town Hall and Eagle set. And then I might come back to it another time if I'm busy. So sometimes it's also broken up.
Yep.
And
I
also
will.
depends on. Go ahead.
No, no, you go.
It also depends on who you're expecting to face and what kind of opponents. For example, if it's in general, like Skelly Donut is not the most common attack, so I might not be as careful. But if I know like it's likely to be in a tournament where there are more people who use that attack, I might pay a little bit more attention to exactly where the clan castle is set up because a lot of the pro players like to get like a core multi-target Inferno with the Clan Castle.
Yeah. I will also point out, because you did it before, chat, look at these walls around the town hall. So he's got these open walls that go right up to the town hall, but not around it. Basically, he's giving no room to wall break the queen, but also when the queen, if she's going to go after that single Inferno, she has to run straight through the town hall poison. It's just basically giving the best value possible to probably your best defense. Let me know if I'm wrong with that, Agent.
No, yeah, definitely. Because the poison just slows down a queen so much that if you're doing a Sui or a charge through the town hall, it just forces her to sit in the town hall. And not only does it do a lot of damage, but then if there's skeleton traps and whatever other traps, then the queen can just sit there forever and they have to use a lot of spells on it. So
I know from personal experience, the wall setup I hate the most are like those diagonal dead zones. Like you'd see them probably in between your right hand side multi and scatter a lot.
yeah, when they're like that.
Yeah, oh, they annoy me so much when I run into them.
Mhm.
Any base, I'm just like, nah, we're charging the complete other side of the base.
Yeah, they can be pretty strong. But I do
Those,
have some extra walls here that I'm not sure exactly what to do with.
yeah, I was gonna say, chat. This is one of the like from when I used to be a builder. This is one of the most annoying things. It's like figuring out what to do with your last couple of walls where they can like get value. Because obviously, as you can tell, Agent's got a nice base set up here. Obviously, the most important thing to note is like the lack of accessibility. Right, you can't get two key targets from the same compartment on this base, and that's what anti-3s are really good at. But yeah, figuring out how to get value with your last last set of walls is really tough. Zoro asked, those 5v5 comps can be used inside base too, or are they better just outside to distract wall breakers? What do you mean 5v5 comps?
I think these ones. I would
Ah,
mostly say the mechanism is on the outside of the base because it wouldn't like if there was a very specific place where you'd want to use them. I'm not sure if you mean like you could maybe consider putting them around a scatter shot like this if you really thought a king for that compartment was likely, um, something along those lines. But in general, it it's not that helpful because there's not too many places like you wouldn't want to put it around this air defense most likely because it's not actually protecting it much from anything. I don't know if that answers the question.
oof. General X has got some advice for you.
What is his advice?
Left side is too open in my opinion, and wall breakers from easy Eagle comp too easy at the moment. Oof. General X. Sorry, I missed a couple of messages. Sorry, chat. I'm trying my best. Do you take in consideration defending Super Bowlers in every anti-3 you make?
Generally, like anti-threes have, um, I think people hit them a little less with Super Bowlers, at least in my opinion, in the tournaments that I played in. So it's not something that's like really high on my list of things to defend.
Yeah, I think Smash is just in a weird place at the moment, chat. Like, everyone knows it's good, but no one knows how to use it consistently.
Yeah, the goal with anti-threes is to kind of like have things spread out in a weird enough way to where the where you're not going to be able to get the value or you're not going to be able to get reliable pathing because the compartments aren't uniform like they are in a symmetrical base.
Yeah.
At least that's the idea.
I'll also say, chat, that I think the Flame Flinger kind of nerfed a lot of smash attacks on anti-3s because there's it. Warden walks are more likely to feel baited because people are setting up traps to stop Flingers some of the time, or even just stop the king. Maybe not necessarily the Flinger, but it's hard to get Warden walk value these days. Any specific traps for air spam?
Yeah, so I'll look at as I'm trying to set up, like after the main defenses are down, I try to set up the sweepers in a decent position and the one of the biggest tricks is always trying to set them up so that you can't zap get crazy zap value in the core, because a lot of people want to zap out a core multi-target Inferno, and
Yeah.
then looking to set up the sweepers so that they mess up pathing and likely air spam angles. And then from there, looking in to see like if the tornado is needed by the town hall or if it's going to be somewhere else.
Hey, Prox. Those open channels are dangerous for Super Bowler smash hits in general. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Nanaki.
And unfortunately, in my opinion, in this meta, you kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to defend because you can't really stop everything. Um, so, like as I'm placing the queen, especially, I look for 7 zaps. So, um, unfortunately, this setup is a little vulnerable to 7 zaps for the queen and scatter and expo, but we'll kind of see how the rest of the base looks. And it might be a decent idea to have some Teslas around the town hall because pretty common attacks like for Lalo would be to use the heroes like the king and the royal champion for an adjacent compartment to the town hall and the queen for the town hall. So
Yeah.
there might end up being some Teslas around the town hall to try to counteract that.
Can you kind of explain that queen and king so close to each other? Because generally you see kind of heroes spread out on anti-3s, but you put them quite close.
Yeah, I try to have the king near heroes sometimes if I think that it's likely that there will be some sort of Sui heroes for the area, because it makes it a lot harder. Like it's a lot bigger of a commitment if they were looking to send heroes in here. So that might be overcommitting. I'm not sure exactly yet. Um, but yeah, that's at least the basic idea. Is that I don't want to make it too easy to suicide the heroes for a scatter and queen.
Yeah.
And here he covers both this compartment and this compartment, and those are both angles where you would potentially be able to kill the queen.
How do you choose single Inferno and multi-Inferno?
Um, I think multi infernos in general are better because they just do more damage unless it's against very specific troops. But you generally want to have a single target inferno on most bases by the town hall in this setup. At least that's pretty common in this meta. So that's usually the default. I would say, like if you look at the majority of anti-3 bases, they'll have a single by the town hall and then 2 multis, and then based on how the base is looking, or how tests are going, you can make changes to that.
Yeah. Yeah, chat. So a lot of the time in this meta, yeah, as Agent said, you'll see the single Inferno behind the Town Hall, and that's just to make Queen charges as tough as possible. Because obviously, if you can Queen charge the Town Hall, you're a long way to getting a triple. So a lot of people just try and make sure that's the last bit of value you get with the Queen charge. That's why you'll often see the CC and the single Inferno set up to rip that Queen apart. Anti-3 bases, the best style of base to defend against Hydra spam noobs. This is actually probably something everyone
Mm,
can relate to.
yeah, that's a tough question because it really depends on the angle. So like if you can make an angle look really good, then you can kind of force it because like with a base that's not symmetrical like this, with the way that the sweepers are set up, you can kind of make one angle look more appealing, and that's something as it gets closer to being finished that I'll look at. So I don't think it's necessarily better than symmetrical base at defending Hydra, but um, you definitely have more chances, I think, to bait because it's not symmetrical. So on a symmetrical base, like you have 2 angles, pretty much all for all attacks, they can pick one of 2 sides, and so it's very difficult to predict exactly what they'll do.
Does that kind of make sense, Prox? So I think basically what he's just saying is like when you've got an asymmetrical base like an anti-3, you can kind of set up the Hydra noob attacker, as you called them, to come from one direction. If you can set someone up to consistently come from the same way, it's very easy to set up traps. Whereas, like with particularly those Legends League bases, a lot of them are solid at defending Hydra, but because most of them are symmetrical, you don't really know which side they're going to come in from, so it makes it harder to bait. Hey, Ari. Genuine question from me. Any reason you have the elixir storage not reachable from the corner and the gold storage reachable from the corner of the air defense?
Um, I generally prefer to have most buildings either reachable or 2 tiles back because that makes it the most difficult to funnel a queen in. If the elixir storage was this far away, then the queen stands in the corner, so there's a better chance she goes inside the walls naturally.
Yep.
But since they fix the queen AI, she mostly goes in anyways. It doesn't actually make that big of a difference at this point.
Yep.
And having this one here is just because there wasn't enough room. Uh, there wasn't really enough room to put the. There's like a, yeah, I guess
Ah,
I want to have some storages around the town hall to slow things down.
yep. Do you have to worry about sneaky gobs as much for the town hall? Because obviously sneaky gobs got a nerf recently.
I don't overly worry unless it's um, like generally, I think you just kind of put enough storages around the town hall that it makes it annoying. And then from there, once the base is completed, you look at log launcher angles and see like, does this log launcher angle look like it gives enough value? And then if that's the case, then maybe move things around. But for the
Okay.
most part, I think the best defense against the sneaky gabs is just to make it really annoying for them.
What do you generally use your bomb towers then for? Because bomb towers are kind of weird. You see a lot of them by the town hall, but then that's obviously really powerful for hybrid. But if they're not by the town hall, it's good for blizzard attacks.
Yeah, I usually look to see where the blizzard value is before deciding. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like some blizzard actually around the warden is kind of good, which means I might have to move. Even though I do like the warden there, but also this area between all of this is very high value for a blizzard, so that's why I'm initially putting it there, and then I'll kind of see how the rest of the base is developing.
Do base builders take into consideration that the attacker could 5 zaps, 1 quake, a single inferno behind the town hall?
Yeah, you do kind of have to. I mean, that goes back to what I said. Like you can kind of only defend so many things, so you have to pick and choose. So like on this, actually, that is something that I was thinking about, and so um, kind of the best you can do usually is just try to move things around so at least they're not getting too much value with one set of zaps. So even something like this would be maybe a little bit better if the huts are spread out like in that formation. I think you can't get any two of them, so that means that the most value that you're going to get with one zap is to get like two or one hut and the single, and then from there, if they're going to do it, then they're going to do it, and hopefully the rest of the base is just strong enough to hold.
Yeah, though the zap for the single behind the town hall was really common about in Pro Wars about 3 or 4 months ago. But then it's not done as much these days because base builders they haven't necessarily reduced the zap value as much, but they're just more aware of it, and so the attackers have to take that into account that the rest of the base might be baited for it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Keep firing your questions in chat. You've had some good ones today. I'm eventually going to run out of questions.
You've had some good ones today as opposed to usual.
Thanks, Agent. I really appreciate that.
Just need to get some ill will towards you from the chat.
Exactly. It's not very difficult. So you're still hanging on to 16 walls. It's always fun.
Yeah. So what I'm looking at for the walls is I just want to make sure, not totally sure it's needed, but for now, if I need to, I can pull them out. But this just makes sure that a wall breaker from here is not going to have too good of a chance of breaking that wall, because that is kind of annoying if you ever allow it. If they were to get a queen into this compartment, she can take out the single first and then get the town hall, and then that kind of
Yeah.
ruins the walls that are around it. I don't think it's very likely, but yeah. But this 9 o'clock section is kind of open. That was a good point. So I'm kind of looking now at ways that I can use walls to mitigate that a little.
How do you decide what CC to use? Do you use Lava Headhunter for most of your builds?
Yeah, generally I think that's like the most common one, but it depends on if you see like a good queen charge. But the Hound is just so strong against so many Sui attacks and air spam. It's the strongest CC if it gets pulled, because generally dragons deal pretty well, especially if they bring a poison. They just deal well even if with super minions. So I think is like the default, and then it can change uh, if you're trying to defend a specific queen charge.
Um, Someone asked a question before and I didn't understand it. Now I understand. Asking about these cannons that you put on the outside from like the 3 to 6 side. I assume that's just to hurt pathing of balloons.
Yeah, it's so that defenses can't be directly targeted, because like this air defense, at least we want to try to make it not directly targetable. And same thing, like if you're starting a Lalo on this side, if you can direct target the wizard tower and the cannon at the same time, it makes it easy for loons to collapse in on the multi. Whereas if this cannon's here, then the loons have to go from the cannon to the wizard tower, and then they're gonna hopefully path around. Or at least that's the basic idea.
Does that kind of make sense, chat? Basically, I know, like, if I'm doing a Lalo attack in Legends, whatever it may be, if there's a defense, like, on the outside, say if this is, like, a defense, right? When you start your Lalo, because you're starting a line like that, almost all of your initial loons will go to that outside cannon, and it's really annoying, because it makes it so much easier for the loons to clump up. Whereas what you really want is, like, say this cannon here wasn't there, you'd be able to target this defense, that defense, and agents moving the screen, but that's fine. You'd be able to target every
Sorry.
defense on this line. No, that's fine. Like directly, and then it's really easy to time and path your balloons. So it's just like they're nuisance defenses on the outside of the base. You used to see it mainly, that was the main purpose of mortars, was to just make Lalo as unappealing as possible in terms of pathing, but obviously mortars are actually valuable now. And I will ask Agent about that
Mhm.
soon, because obviously stopping flame flingers has gone from, well, it's now priority number one half the time.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll get to that when we get there. When do you decide to put Tesla Farm in the middle around the island multi, or always put them around the scatter? I assume it's like, when do you put Tesla Farms in the core versus the outside?
I think it depends on how much like Zap value or Skelly Donut value you have. If you're facing a Lalo clan, or a clan that you think will do a lot of Lalo, it makes a lot more sense to put the Teslas around the core, because they do more Zaps for Infernos and Skelly Donuts for the CC and the Inferno, so that can be a good way to counter those strategies.
Why can unorthodox bases with bad value spread, like boxes and anti-2s, work so well at Town Hall 14?
Uh, well, the cynical answer is that the meta is just not very good, so it's more about luck than uh, having a perfectly designed base, which is not entirely true, but it is somewhat true. Like, if everything's random, it's more just about giving something weird that the attacker over or underestimates. And so that's why those bases can get defenses, in some cases, even more than like the bases that seem like everything is laid out in a better order.
I think the best way I would put it, DF, is like the the thing that boxes and anti twos do really well is punish mistakes. Um, like if you make a mistake on that, you're really likely to fail. Whereas if you make a mistake on like an anti-3 like this, right? There's just not enough damage in any one area of the base, which is also its strength, but there's not enough damage in one area of the base to punish the mistake. So you can often get away with it, like particularly like queen charge attacks you see on anti-3s. Some of the time the queen will walk the wrong way, but you'll just charge a different compartment on the base anyway. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just not enough damage or not enough like things that end an attack, um, that are there to punish the mistake. Whereas those boxes and anti-2s really do, and a lot of the player base doesn't play in Legends that competitively, and it shows when they hit a box or a ring base. Hopefully, Agent and I both gave you kind of different answers there. Agent from a base building perspective, and me from being a noob attacker perspective.
All right. So now that I've got everything down for the most part, I'll start to look at like what are the likely attacks and what can I do to make those attacks less likely or to bait them. So I'm looking around for Blizzard value, and this Warden platform is still looking kind of annoying. It's a little tricky actually to get a Hound exactly to this area, but people still might just YOLO it in here. So that's something that I would think about, and I might change if I was testing or if I knew what team I was facing. Um, this Blizzard, as I was talking about earlier, definitely looks pretty strong. A Blizzard for this compartment in general looks good, but going over this air defense, there's no way to really get traps behind here, so that's a little less likely. And then this compartment also in this area for the bomb tower, where the bomb tower is for the multi expo and queen is decent. I wasn't totally sure on that, but yeah. A
Okay.
Blizzard on this side also could be decent, trying to get like the scatter and expo, so this bomb tower may be flipped over to the other side depending on how exactly I was feeling on that day.
Mm-hmm. So two questions. When do you use ground and air Skelly? Like when do you
Uh,
pick?
for the most part, I think ground skellies are stronger because they just take more time to deal with. Like most air troops deal splash damage. Dragons will kill the air skellies very quickly, whereas heroes will take a lot of shots to deal with ground skellies. So only in very specific situations that I recommend them to be on air, or like if you're trying to defend a very specific attack.
And so, what's the idea to that entry to the open channel? Was the other question, because you've kind of half blocked it off, but not fully blocked it off.
Those are just there for now because I had a couple of extra walls, and this makes this expo unreachable. So if a queen is coming down here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles away, so she can't reach that expo before she gets into the compartment.
There you go.
If that answers the question.
Zoro in chat saying, remind Agent about the 7 zap thing too, the Queen Scatter Expo. He said he would come back to it later.
Yeah, so the warden here partially um, addresses it, and that's something that at least if you drop the zaps quick enough, it technically can kill the queen before it gets down. But the warden buff does make it so that 7 zaps don't kill the queen, and that's one of the reasons why the Teslas I'm at least putting them here for now, because they will hopefully slow down a Sui because the most likely follow up to doing a zap like that would be to try to send the heroes in for the town hall, and that will at least slow them down a decent amount. And then if they're not expecting that, and then they potentially pull the CC earlier, and it gets a little dangerous when you've already used that many spells. So that's kind of the solution to that issue right now.
It's not a question, but I have to give props to all base builders out there. Aw, you put your knowledge and passion in the bases you make for us to defend. Just a little message dedicated to all builders. Aw, I see a nice message in there. Thank you for that, Nav. That's really nice. Are you paying attention to eagle charges? Because I think it's pretty common recently on anti-3s.
Yeah, that is kind of the next thing. So after I'm trying to figure out the blizzard, so this is something that I would probably test. So my initial solution for a blizzard in this area, it is kind of tough for a blimp to really get good testing for traps because there's no defense. I purposely didn't have a defense here so that it's difficult to have a blimp go in, and then with seeking air mines and a tornado trap that can mess up um, multiple blimps, and it can also potentially mess up or at least slow down a blimp if they're doing some kind of air spam from this direction. So that's what I'm setting up for this. And then the next thing would be to look at like other charges or SUIs. Um, and again, like I said, the big compartments, there's only so many different attacks that you can defend at once.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly what the idea would be. I would have to kind of figure out which queen charge I thought was likely, and then see if there's a way to trap it or if it gets enough value to even work anyways. Another thing that you can generally rely on is like most players, like you're not always going to be attacked by the best players. So if you see a plan that you think can work, but it might at least be a difficult plan to execute, then that might be one that you have to live with. So for example, if I think like one of the really good queen charge attackers could queen charge this and they would get it to work, I'm not necessarily like, unless I'm specifically facing that clan, I might just say, well, if they're good enough to do it, then they can triple it because there's more likely things or things that take less skill that are more likely that I can work to defend.
Yeah. Basically, what we're learning from today's chat is you just can't defend everything. Um, but the builders at Blueprint are going to try and defend as much as possible, whereas when you build a base, you can't defend anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. Like, you have to pick and choose, and that's, I think, one of the things that separates the good base builders is that they're able to pick the right things to defend. Because if you try to defend everything, then you're definitely not going to succeed because you can't defend everything right now. And if you try to pick one thing, then most likely you're not going to be able to pick the right thing unless you have a lot of experience. So that's like it takes a lot of experience just to be able to look at a base and know all the strategies. I'm not saying like I'm perfect, but I have a pretty good understanding of most of the meta strategies, so it helps a lot in being able to figure out what attack is likely and work against that.
Um, Drew's just come into chat and, no kidding, has said the most intelligent thing he's ever said in his life. CMG Drew, by the way. Um,
Okay.
the NATO trap on this base, will he want to rotate the base to change the direction of the NATO?
Uh, Unfortunately, you can't do that because rotating the base just rotates it, so it's still going to be spinning the same way. That's something that I would love to see, but um, or even just see Supercell give us a mirror image button, something like that. But unfortunately, there's not really a way to do that right now. So
Yeah.
if you get to a point in a base where you really like the base, but you want the NATO spinning the other way, you just kind of sit down and have a good cry, and then decide whether you want to take the time to completely rebuild the base in mirror image or just live with the tornado not spinning the right way.
So for those confused, what Drew is saying is at the moment the tornado. Sorry, agent. Can we just have the tornado in the? Yeah, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. Oh, you can still do your things on the eagle. Just have the tornado in the shot. At the moment, the tornado's gonna turn this way, right? Um, but Drew's saying if you're not happy with the tornado going that way, if you want it to go that way, what you have to do is get the base, like cut it down the middle and just flip it like this. But that's not just a rotation of the base. Like obviously you have the option to rotate the base, but that doesn't change it. You need to literally flip it across. But obviously once you've built this much of the base, probably not worth the flip because Agent has spent 44 minutes on this stream building this, and I would hate to do that to him.
Yeah, another thing that I'm looking at is like the pathing around this multi-target inferno. So right here, if there was no defense here, then potentially like as troops collapse in and they're coming from this direction, then they're just gonna push into that multi-target inferno. So it might not be a big issue, but it's always nice if you have a central multi, if you can try to have like a link of defenses around it, and maybe they'll path to it, but as much as possible, trying to set up the defenses so that they don't make good pathing.
That's why I was going to ask about that Builder Hut and the Eagle comp. Can they not go from that straight to that core sweeper instead of the Eagle?
Yeah, potentially they could. So that would be another thing that I would be kind of thinking about and trying to figure out exactly where the defenses should be set up. If I make it one tile further, it at least makes it a little bit tougher. I mean, at some point they'll be able to cut the funnel, and potentially this hut can even be moved out. So you can kind of, that might be something that I would test and kind of see after doing Lalos if troops are pathing off of this defense. If I can move it one tile this way or the other. But yeah, at this point, all the defenses are down. Got the general idea, looked at the basic blizz and basic suis, and then kind of try to find ways that I can reinforce the base. I feel like it's likely for Lalo, put the SAMs on ADs. It seems more likely to be air spammed than have the SAMs more in the core.
Notice him putting the mini bombs around, guys. Particularly the ones where he's blizzard baiting, because obviously to kill super wizards, it's one mini bomb and one giant bomb. So it's all about making sure that giant bomb hits, but also having mini bombs spread around so at least one of them hits.
Yep, and they can also like if they're doing some kind of sneaky goblin blimp for the town hall, they can help against that, and just regular sneaky goblins with invisibility spell if they don't test enough. Which usually they test enough, but that's kind of like how sometimes you get a defense is just if the attacker makes a mistake and you have the traps there to capitalize. And then for springs, it depends on exactly if there looks like there's a good hybrid somewhere, then I might put it there, or I might just look and see if maybe I can have like a spring against an ice golem somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question. Springs, do you use them more to stop headhunters or hybrid?
Um, I don't find them super reliable against head hunters, so unless like I'm actually in testing and able to get them to work, maybe I just have bad luck. But yeah, springs a lot of time like unless they're doing a hybrid, it's very unlikely that like a hybrid or a hog attack, it's very unlikely that they'll actually end up hitting. So you kind of usually I'll just try to like commit hard against one thing and hopefully that's the thing that they do because they're not going to be relevant unless they're like all against one attack for the most part, if that makes sense. Like if they're doing hogs and you have two springs hit like four hogs, then there's it doesn't actually really make a difference. You kind of need to have them all in the same side. So that was something that I was looking at. Maybe someone could do some kind of attack along these lines, and I would test it out to be sure. But some kind of like queen charge for the town hall and getting this section of the base, and then in that case, you would be wanting to start hogs kind of coming this way along the base. So that's why these spring traps are here. It's just pretty much speculation at this point because without testing, there's no way to know exactly what strategies they'd use or what would even work.
Yeah. That's really as simple it is, chat. Like a lot of traps are just like the first time we go around when the base is built, traps are just mostly speculation.
Hmm.
But once you test a bit more, obviously you can refine it. Now we got these last walls, and you're just setting it up to make it as tough as possible for the king to get the scatter for free.
Yep. Yeah, correct. So they might be changed and after that would be another thing after testing that I think you would try to figure out if there's an attack. That's the nice thing about having walls. You can kind of close up something or change things. You don't have to scramble for walls. Walls also are obviously available if we needed them, but I don't see a use for them. So this is kind of where I would stop and then make any later adjustments with testing.
Can we get that on like a nice little photo mode then? If that's okay.
Yes.
So there we are,
I'll
chat.
keep moving it so you can't get a good screenshot.
Thank you. I mean, I wasn't going to take a well, I will take a screenshot probably later for like the thumbnail or something. But there's the base, guys. Have you got any last questions? General saying he needs 2 hours if he's going to do a base building stream. Dude, you'll put me to sleep by then. We need the link. Yeah, we'll get the link, don't worry. But yeah, Chad, have you got any last things on the base? So far from seeing the base, what's your how would you hit it, and what CC troops do you have in mind?
Is that a question for me?
Yes. Well, no one's going to ask how I'm going to hit a base agent. I'm just terrible at the game.
I mean, when I'm looking at how to hit it, I would usually put it on scout mode to look at it. For CC, I would probably just be sticking with a hound unless I saw like a specific queen charge. But with where the CC is placed on the space, it's not like it's set to kind of deter a queen charge because it's behind the single, but because it's deterring a queen charge, they're not actually very likely to do it. So I would probably just be sticking with a hound. And then as far as like, do you mean like how would I hit it? Like what strategies would I be testing?
Yeah. Or if you found this if you ran into this base in a 5v5 war, how would you hit it?
Well, it's because like the way that I build it stop the things that I look for in a base. So I I generally don't like hitting my own bases. But generally things like I would be looking at the Blizz on the Wizard Tower, potentially getting the Town Hall in the Wizard Tower, and dealing with the CC and getting some decent bounces, maybe getting a HUD or two. Like that's pretty good value. So I'd be looking at how that can be stopped, or if I was an attacker, I'd be looking at potentially doing it and figuring out if I thought it was trapped. For air spam, it's kind of like between. I mean, you can kind of pick any angle, but like the adjacent angles would be like from 11 o'clock or like 10 o'clock into that scattershot compartment, or from 2 o'clock into that scattershot compartment. So pretty much either way you're going, you would be sending the heroes more or less into the eagle. So I would be thinking about traps that are against that. I might potentially move Teslas around the eagle to try to slow down heroes, and then yeah. So those are the kind of like the first things that I would think about, like the obvious blizzards, the obvious air spams, and then work from there.
If you guys are wondering how I would hit it, I would probably start queen at like 5:30, walk around, go into the multi-comp, and I'm pretty sure as long as you wall break the corner on that arch tower at 3, you would be able to wall break into the queen compartment as well. Probably sneak the king in to get the eagle and the RC, and then like Lalo opposite town hall and just finish on it and hope, pray, something like that. But that's the sort of thing though, chat. Like if agent sees that charge does really well in testing, then he's just gonna make it hard. Maybe even use the last 8 walls to put that dead zone I talked about before in between the eagle in between the scatter and the multi, and then what can I do?
Yep. Yeah, that's actually a very good thought that I would. That's a great solution to that problem. I wouldn't change it now just because I don't know what it'll look like, but it's also good, like I mentioned, to kind of think ahead when you're testing your base. Like maybe if you buy one and you're thinking about trying it against specific strategies, like think about ahead of time, or if you're trying to build your own and think about ahead of time, like what are you potentially going to do if this works? Because you don't. The worst thing is when you spend a lot of time on a base and you just have no way to fix it after one attack. So.
Yep. And I think this is the only question I've missed. Are you worried about hybrid on this base?
Not particularly. unless it was against a team that was doing some weird attacks with like a jump spell for the queen, or with like hybrid through the town hall. Just because the town hall is very anti-charge, at least very anti-direct charge. Like the majority, I think, of the charges that were for the town hall would probably be coming along this into this compartment or coming through this compartment for the town hall somehow. Um, because you're not getting a ton of value. You could definitely force it, so that would probably be something I would just try in testing. But it would be pretty simple to just put springs on these defenses because the hybrid, if they did it, in my mind, would most likely be coming along this way.
I
So
agree.
it shouldn't be that difficult to fix if it did end up working.
I see King, Sui, Scatter, 7+1 for the Scatter Queen Cop. Yep, 2 Zap, put 2 Quake, RC, Trick the Multi. Ooh, we got a Zap. I miss RC's Zap Lightning Quakes. So for
Yeah, it was
there,
a
you're
very
just
different time.
bringing like only Zap and Quake spells then. And Smash with Launcher from Eagle. Now that is interesting. That is a risky plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is generally more so built for um, like one hit wars. So you'd build maybe slightly different if you were, or set the traps at least slightly different, like the Lalo plan that Hook mentioned. And that's not super in one hit formats. It's just the chance of a 1 star is definitely there. And the same thing with that Smash plan. But there are definitely teams that would do it. So that would be something you'd kind of test and see and figure out if you're able to slow down. That's another place where like choosing the right clan castle, maybe you could even consider ice golems against it.
Yep. Mm. When do you choose to close a compartment or leave it open on the corner? We kind of talked about that behind before. Just you can leave it open on the corner if it only gives you access to one compartment, but you generally don't see him leaving corners open where it gives access to two. But I think we're gonna leave that there because our agent has spent an hour of his time on voice with me, and obviously we pity him for that. So I want you all to give lots of love in the chat for Agent. It's not easy coming on stream and building a base. I will also reveal, chat, he did actually, as far as I know, build this from fresh. We talked about this before, and he told me he'd done no planning for the stream. So that felt great. That was
Yep.
a really nice thing to hear. But he built this properly from scratch. From what I can tell, a lot of the other builders who do this, and I don't blame them, have like a base ready and they just kind of build it on stream. But Agent built this completely fresh, so it was actually interesting to see what a first-time build really looks like. So thank you, Agent.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.